Hello and welcome to another episode of Real Talk. I'm here again with Arron.
Hi guys.
And I'm your host, Jake, here on the Retrospective. And today, what are we talking about, Arron?
Well, today I'm going to be going through my opinion of the 5 best shows, great watches during this lockdown, quarantine, where we've all got a lot of time on our hands. I know a lot of people probably they've gone through Netflix. They're watching stuff like the Wrong Missy. They're watching these movies. They're watching these shows. They're watching Love Is Blind, and they're like, I've trawled through some real crap here. Netflix is not giving me what I need anymore.
They're watching Friends for the 100th time.
Friends for the 100th time, and it's like streaming might have blown up, but there was a whole world of bingeable TV shows, primarily in the early noughties, that preceded streaming. But if they came out now, would be massive, massive hits because we're talking about exceptional TV shows. And I just want to go through my personal top 5. Now, I'm just going to put a caveat out there of a couple of shows I'm not going to be discussing as part of this list because I feel like they're so well known already that to
honorable
just go
mentions.
Yeah, well, more than honorable mentions. I think we're talking about probably the top 2 TV shows of all time, in the form of The Sopranos and The Wire. So I'm not going to include them in my list because I think they're just a little bit too. We'll be going over all ground really in terms of how good these shows are. If you haven't watched them, these are must watches beyond anybody's opinion. So I really, could not recommend them highly enough. But they're not going to be part of my top 5. Not going to be what we're exploring today.
Number 5.
I'm going to give you my number 5. Now, this is a show I've literally just finished rewatching. I had only ever seen it once, and I watched it with my girlfriend who had never ever seen it before, and she's not a big fan of these comedians and their stuff typically afterwards. So not a fan of stuff like This Is the End or a lot of that more gross out stoner comedy. But a show that I've just finished rewatching, only 1 season long, is a show called Freaks and Geeks.
Kevin
who did the show. Yeah. It's the guy. Yeah. So Paul Feig, I think he's
Paul Feig. That's it. There's two Feig guys.
He's in Sabrina, and he's in a few other like comedies. Like I think he's one of the teachers in Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and you recognize him definitely. Really, really like he's like the show frontrunner. But like the cast is James Franco, Jason Segel, Seth Rogen, all before. These were like their very, very like sort of early roles. Like Freaks and Geeks was like Seth Rogen's second ever audition, and like really, really early ones. And then Linda Cardellini is the lead, and then they're sort of the older characters. And then it also focuses on like a group of these like her brother who's like 14, so they're supposed to be like 16, like 17 sort of age. Goes like a little bit younger, but not too much younger that it's sort of like it's like a completely different world. And the idea is basically it's just like a coming of age story essentially. It starts out quite a little bit almost caricaturish of like some characters. It's sort of painting like they're like the geeks who everyone sort of like no one likes really, sort of the losers or like the young guys. And then she's like a really intelligent, like she's like really, really smart, but she's sort of a bit disillusioned, doesn't know who she is anymore, and sort of wants to experience a bit of a different side of life. So starts hanging out with like these burnout kids who are sort of like not very good in school, not really interested in grades, and sort of tries to like start hanging out with them to see like sort of to try and be a bit cooler, a bit edgier. And that's sort of like the initial premise. Like they're getting bullied in the first episode. This like bullies have got a really irrational hatred of them for no reason, and like so it sort of plays out quite like, and it's sort of like it's like a comedy, but there's no laugh track. The episode's like 44 minutes, so it's like probably it would have been an hour when it was originally aired, and it like had huge like the network that it originally aired on like had big problems. Like they sort of wanted it to be like the kids were it would be a lot more cliche. Like it kind of starts out a little bit like that, but then quickly sort of devolves into some really smart writing, really, really honest writing about the sort of problems that you encounter as a kid, and that feel real. Like certain characters, like having problems with their parents, sort of being like really hard on them, or like parents who are in tumultuous relationships themselves, and that sort of resonating towards the kids, and just like people trying to just find themselves. So whilst it's also set in the 80s, and the soundtrack is just exceptional, like so good, really, really good, interesting soundtrack. The kids really like music, and there's a lot of talk about music in the show, and a lot of sort of like discussions about like music. and then the sort of also discussion, like, you know, so you have like a character who's smoking a lot of marijuana. This is never really framed as like a cool thing. Like, then one of the characters tries it, doesn't really go too well, and it's just very sort of plays out kind of like people just trying new things and it not always working. Like the geek characters sort of have some successes, have some failures. Like not everything works out for everyone. It's sort of like, but it sort of showed geek culture in a way that it hadn't really ever been shown before, where it was sort of like this was not something that for these people to be bullied or mocked over. Like other people in the, you know, like they have interests, but it's not like that's all that there is to them. Like it portrayed them. They were much more rounded characters. All the characters feel really well fleshed out, really real. There's a great continuity throughout the show as well, as it harkens back to old episodes. And it's just 18 episodes of just absolute, really, really phenomenal, like really, really funny writing as well at times. Like obviously you've got Franco, Rogan, and Siegel, like some really great comedies that they released during the noughties. And it's also like a Judd Apatow production, like an early sort of Apatow show. So that's my shout for a show.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying.
Sorry, it's also on Channel 4 as well, so you can watch it on all 4 now. Stream it if you're on 4OD. Nothing stopping anyone from just getting straight into it.
Going back to what you were saying before, about it being 45 minutes long. Like comedies aren't usually that long, especially American comedies.
Absolutely.
So that kind of suggests to me that they put more thought into the writing.
100%,
yeah, other shows would do.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, with the Judd Apatow thing, I kind of went through a phase of really liking, you know, everything he was involved with.
Yeah.
And back then, I can kind of see where, you know, what you were saying with it wasn't portraying everything to be all cool all the time. Whereas now, his later stuff, it's like everyone is just, you know, like smoking weed, but, you know, everything works out in the end, kind of thing.
Like there's a lot of like I think there's some of those stoner comedies. Like I absolutely love Pineapple Express, but it's you know, it's supposed to be ridiculous, whereas this is a lot more grounded in reality. Where I think Apatow's comedy works best, like with 40-Year-Old Virgin, probably one of the best ones.
Yeah,
and not both realistic comedies. Like
there was a more recent one as well where it kind of went back to how I liked it. It was Paul Rudd, and he was going through a marriage breakup.
All right.
That was a more recent one where it felt like he was going back to how he used to do things, and more grounded comedy. So do you want to move on to your number 4?
So 4, I am recommending Deadwood. So this was a HBO show, and basically Deadwood is a 3-series long look at a real place. It was a real town in a time in America where it's like the Wild West, but states are forming, the Civil War sort of happened, and like they're trying to bring in more law, they're trying to bring in more order, and trying to build statehoods and stuff like that. It's very like sort of the early formation of the United States. Now, and within that, you basically have this town that's like a camp that is currently not attached to any state. So there's a few like lawmen coming down there trying to like make their claim for Deadwood to be incorporated as part of a specific state or whatever. And just about the sort of characters who are in there. Ian McShane's the lead. He plays Al Swearingen, who is apparently these are all real people who are in the show. Like they're all based off real people. Wild Bill Hickok is one of the more famous examples of somebody who's in there who's real. Calamity Jane is also one of the main characters. So yeah, just a really, really solid show. The premise is intriguing. But the most intriguing thing about Deadwood is that the writing style is like nothing you'll have ever this is not like any other show you've ever watched. People talk really uniquely. They're quite vulgar, but they're incredibly eloquent. It almost flows like Shakespeare at times. Like people are incredibly well spoken and use words that if we to hear them now, you would think like, wow, that's an incredibly eloquent statement, but they're from normal people.
So is it trying to be an accurate portrayal of the time?
An accurate portrayal. Like this is all in like documents and stuff. Like I think it's trying to be an incredibly accurate portrayal of the times, to the extent where it can like, you know, there's scenes where Laura's like, "What happened there?" And I'm like, "I think he was saying this," or "That was the gist." I think that was the gist of it. And they talk so quickly, but once you get a handle on it, and you get a handle on the sort of the cadences and the way people are speaking and the sort of things that they are normally saying. There's some exceptional writing involved where it's like some really really creative, like cutting jokes and stuff like that, and like things that people are saying about people that are just like, whoa, that is so good. Like just writing on another level to any other show, really, like really intelligently, like structured insults and jokes and stuff like that would play perfectly in the world, but would make no sense outside of it. And it's like, I think that's a really great sign of the Deadwood, that it feels like its own unique thing. There simply is not another show like Deadwood. Well, there are shows like it in the West, but there's nothing that captures that to the level that Deadwood captures what really feels like taking you back to this unique point in time.
I'm very interested in that, actually, because one of my favorite films recently has been The Witch. Which had like Shakespearean dialogue and stuff in it, but cool. more accurate to the time period rather than, you know, just Shakespearean.
Yeah.
It was like colonial era when it just started. Cool. Some of the main characters have Yorkshire accents as well, which is really cool.
They had them in Game of Thrones, mate.
Yeah, mainly Southerners playing people with Yorkshire accents in that, though, which pissed me off.
This is not a blanket recommendation. This is my own personal favourite. I think if you are more of a plot over character based person, you could find it frustrating. The writing just might be simply too intelligent for some to pick up.
It's genuine.
Yeah, you idiots. You just read a book, why don't you? But it genuinely is quite difficult to pick up. You might want to go out with subtitles. I think that's a completely smart idea. But yeah, I wouldn't say this is a show for everyone. It's quite slow moving, and it's set in a location where that doesn't change very much. It's just in the town of Deadwood, and there's a lot of plot, a lot of intrigue, people trying to take control of the town and the fate of the town in general. And it's a very, very interesting time period. But yeah, the show's not for everyone. If you want to watch the show, I believe it should be on Sky Atlantic. Sky box sets, I believe you would be able to watch it through. So Now TV would also give you that if you wanted to stream that now.
Wow, you've really done your research for this video, haven't you?
I know, yeah. I put my effort in, mate. I believe that's true. Anyway, I will just actually double check that. So, number 3, a show I'm going to recommend as part of this is The Shield. A show that I think, for me, is the closest thing to Breaking Bad, besides Breaking Bad. So, if you like Breaking Bad, there's an absolute chance that you're going to love The Shield.
This isn't to do with Marvel, is it, by any chance?
No, that's the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that you're thinking of.
Oh, thank God.
This is not that show at all. So there you go. Oh, ye of little faith, Jake. So The Shield is done by the same writers. Another show that you're probably going to like, Sons of Anarchy. Is the same people who did Sons of Anarchy. It was the first show that they'd done before that. It centers around a corrupt, like LA, a drug enforcement unit in the Los Angeles Police Department. I believe they're based on the real-life Rampart division. They're called the Strike Team, led by their corrupt leader, Vic Mackey, who's not shy of taking drugs, money, whatever he can, all in the name of enforcing the streets, but sometimes that corruption takes it too far. Simultaneous to that, there's also like a homicide detective who's investigating serial killers. So he's like another character in the show. So there's also serial killer plots going on. And the show in its infancy, in its early day, is interesting, but sort of goes episode to episode, something new happening each week with an overarching story plot. And then deeper into the show, introduces almost season-long arcs where the show is a lot more focused on maybe 1 or 2 storylines and sees them all the way through the entire show. But a very, very interesting binge watch that has a slightly different structure to what you're probably used to. Basically, one of the few shows that I probably have ever seen where it starts off good and ends unbelievably good. Like, we're talking the last 3 seasons, maybe. The show goes from probably starts out at maybe like a 7 out of 10, moves towards like an 8 out of 10, gets quite good, and then the last few seasons are 10 out of 10 television. Unbelievably, it becomes just utter must watch. Like the sort of edgiest, like heart pumping viewing that only really Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones to an extent that didn't really deliver on it, but that sort of excitement as you're watching it, where you're like, fuck me, anything could happen here. Like, I am worried about every character. I don't know what's going to happen.
Nice.
And that's sort of how The Shield ends. Just really, really phenomenal stuff. And yeah, a lot of great characters, good guys turning bad, like, you know, people delving into similar sort of story arcs to Breaking Bad. Yeah, really, really great show that you've probably not seen or heard before streaming blew up.
Cool. I mean, you had me at it's similar to Breaking Bad, to be honest.
Yeah, it's the shooting style. We're talking from a plot perspective, maybe a character
Yeah.
perspective. It's similar to Breaking Bad, but it's shot completely differently. A
Oh
lot
yeah,
of
that's what I
shaky
thought you
cam,
meant.
up close shaky cam sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So number 2 on my 5 shows that blew up before streaming. This is a show I watched quite recently. I recommended it to a couple of friends of mine, a couple who both watched it. So a man who likes sports but doesn't like this sport, and a girl who doesn't really have much interest in sport at all, both absolutely loved it. And the show is Friday Night Lights.
Ah, this is going to be a challenge for me. I don't know.
Have you seen it?
No, but I love the soundtrack. The soundtrack is by Explosions in the Sky, great post-rock band. One of kind of the bands that got me into post-rock.
Yeah, so that soundtrack I think comes from the movie that the series is based on.
Oh, Friday Night Lights, the movie.
Yeah. I
Right,
think that comes from the movie,
sure.
which is what the show is based on, and I'm pretty sure Connie Britton is in the movie.
In terms of, like, as you say, sports things, just instantly like, oh.
Yeah.
So yeah, sell it to me.
Well, so Friday Night Lights. So the show is about a small town in Texas, where the center of the town is their high school football team. So this is American football. Everyone's focus is on it. Everyone's attention. So Kyle Chandler, who has been in Wolf of Wall Street, various other big films coming off the back of it, and Connie Britton are sort of the two leads. They play Eric Taylor and his wife Tammy, and basically a lot of the show is about him. He's trying to get this team to a huge amount of pressure is on him for them to win the state championship, and he's got a good team. He's got to take them all the way. In the very first episode, his star quarterback is in an injury, ends up paralyzed. So he has to think quickly and try and develop this quarterback who's never played at all. This kid was, looking like he was going to play in the NFL, like a really, really big, a massive future taken away from him instantly. And so he's got to try and nurture this kid who's more interested in art, really, not really a football guy. Try and take him, help them take the team to state championships. So that's sort of the premise of the first season. But really what the show is about, it's about youth and the ideas of what is possible for you. How for some people, the future's all laid out in front of them. They're excelling in some capacity. And then for some people, the future is nowhere near as clear. So what sort of path are they going to go down? Even for the people who are succeeding in the sport, if there isn't that professional step for them, what can they really do? Is this the height? There's a lot of talk about, like, is this for jocks, life peaks at high school sort of thing, that whole sort of concept. And it's sort of like there's a sad reality to that. And but it sort of explores, it's really about the characters on the team, the kids themselves, how Coach Taylor and his wife, their relationship, the chemistry is off the charts. Never seen anything like it in my life. If you like, these actors must be together. Like, how have they not fallen in love just playing these characters? Like, it's just unbelievable chemistry. Like, and their relationship anchors a lot of what's going on. Fascinating characters that develop really, really intriguingly. It's just shot really interestingly. Like, there's a lot of handycam, sort of quite shaky kind of shots. And reading up about the show afterwards, they filmed a lot of that where they let the characters, they didn't have marks or anything that they had to hit. They let them walk around the room and just play it how they felt it. A lot of trust given to young actors who smash the roles, like absolutely exceptional performances. Some really, really heartfelt moments, and just a really, really enjoyable watch that I think is so much more accessible than the plot sort of sounds makes it. It's just a really, really fantastic show where the football is very much in the background. It drives the plot forward, but it's not what it's about, really.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. I'm not just. This isn't a hardcore. You have to. The less you know about football, the better, really. Because I can imagine, if you knew about football, I'm watching like this coach would never be well respected. Like they're clutching every game, like in the last play and stuff like that. It's fucking madness.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I just think anything that gets bogged down in the actual game itself. Even I feel like even if I enjoyed sports, I wouldn't be interested in watching a scripted scene play out. Yeah, exactly.
100%. Yeah. If you want to watch Friday Night Lights, I believe it's on Amazon Prime. Let me just have a quick look. It might be on Now TV actually. All these things, all the shows I'm recommending, either on Channel 4, Now TV, Amazon Prime, all legally streamable on very, very popular streaming services. So these might have been out before streaming. These are shows you should absolutely be getting on during this quarantine. Got a lot of time on your hands. Don't just be watching Tiger King repeats. Don't be watching Love Is Blind. These are the shows. These are shows that are going to change your life, like really change your perspective on things and give you a complete like, going to blow your mind. Some of this stuff, really, really excellent TV. But the show I'm going to finish with, the show that is my number one show, very much one of the best shows of all time, is the show 6 Feet Under. When American Beauty came out, Alan Ball, I believe, is the writer of that of American Beauty. When he wrote the screenplay for American Beauty, it won the Oscars, obviously blew up, massive film, all-time classic, great film. He was said that they...
Are you allowed to say that now?
What's that? I haven't said who was in it. So,
okay.
I'm just talking about it objectively.
Yeah, objectively.
Annette Bening was great. Annette Bening was great in it. So, I mean, we don't have to talk about anything else. She was great. End of it. But he was basically told afterwards, like, hey, you massively, massively wanted. Like, we want to put a TV show together, and basically you can pitch whatever the fuck you want. Like, we will make whatever you want to make. Very, very rare, like, that this happens, but obviously massively sought after writer at that time. So he had some conversations and stuff, and he was like, I have an idea for a show that's quite unusual, but if you basically let me do, like, you know, if you let this happen, like, this is a tough sell, a tough pitch. And he's like, but if you let me do it, I think it's going to be really, really good. So came up with basically an idea for a show where it's about a family who run a funeral home. It's sort of at a time when I guess shows needed a little bit of a gimmick. Lost has the flashbacks. Do you know, it's like, I feel like early naughty shows always maybe like sometimes had a little bit of a gimmick of how they were shot or filmed sometimes, which I think shows have less of now. Like things that are literally stylistically just to do with that specific show. And 6 Feet Under, every episode begins with someone dying. So it's like someone dies, like not a character not like a main character, but like it's how, and then like, so sometimes a character dies, the scene's quite comedic, and their death, like they'll be dealing with the funeral of that character, but it's not a major part of the episode. And then sometimes it forms like a really, really big part of the episode, like whoever's died, it becomes like a major plot. But basically, the first episode of the show, the father of the family dies. So one of the sons of the family, he has to return. He sort of like didn't want to live there anymore, didn't want to be part of the business, just sort of went out on his own. But he's sort of like an intelligent guy who's sort of not really achieving anything. He's like working in like a supermarket or something at the time. It sort of comes back, and the family are like, look, can you please stay? Can you please hang around? Like, we're going to need some help getting through this period. So he sort of gets more involved in the business and sort of starts working in it. And it's just about the characters and their lives. The concept of death is incredibly prominent in the show. What it is to know someone, friendship, love, religion. It really, there's no subject that's off the table in it. It really tackles everything, a lot of taboos, and just handles them just really, really intelligently, really, really creatively, and just executes some fantastic plots that are intriguing in their own right. But really, it's about the characters and just seeing their journeys. So there's like the daughter of the family, she's sort of going through like high school, obviously not really well thought of in the school. She's like a bit of a freak because obviously her family run this funeral home. They're driving around in this crazy hearse. She's driving around in a hearse that is like the family car. But Michael C. Hall, who was Dexter, he's in it. And he's a far better character than Dexter. He plays David Fisher.
I don't think I've seen him in anything else.
Yeah. So this was what he was in before, and he's outstanding as David Fisher, who's like the sort of like very straight-laced, but is like a homosexual. So deals very much just one of the best gay relationships ever on television. between him and this guy Keith. Like really, really, really good. What's great about the show is just the characters. Like you just have to, and I can't really sell it more than that. Like the themes it explores are really, really deep human concepts, like what it is to be alive and everything like that. And I have cried at nothing. I never ever cry at anything really. And the finale to 6 Feet Under, highly thought of as the best finale of all time of any show. But like I literally see sometimes recommendations where people are like, just watch the finale, and you're like, what? That is mental. Like, are you fucking insane? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
You have to build and like you have to get to know the characters, obviously.
Exactly.
Like,
now, the finale is great, but I mean, it isn't. Literally, you could just watch that and you'll be fine. Like, fucking absolutely, it's an insult to the rest of the show to reduce it to like thinking. But it has the best finale of any show has ever had. Like, I don't think a show has ever wrapped up in quite as satisfying or definitive a way. That's just absolutely. I wept, and I mean wept. I never cry, and it broke me to pieces. I was absolutely in bits. It is spectacular, like an unbelievably cathartic experience. And I think it's just right up there in my shows. I don't think a lot of people have seen it. People who have rave about it. Like, it's sort of a show where I feel like when I first heard about it, I thought it was like something that was maybe on Sky One. Like, I might have caught an episode of it. Didn't really see it. Feel like it's kind of a little bit of a comedy at times, but it sort of felt to me like, oh, it's some sort of weird kind of offbeat comedy. Didn't really seem like it had much about it. And then I read some things online. They said it was good. I took a chance on it, and it's just absolutely brilliant. Like, really, really is such a worthwhile investment. I could not recommend anything higher. It's absolutely spectacular show.
I will definitely be checking out all 5 of those at some point. So thanks for your recommendations.
No problem. Those are my 5 favorite shows. Get on them. No excuse. Quarantine, coronavirus, forget it. Got all the time in the world right now. These are the shows you need to be checking out. See you later, the real fans of Real Talk.